God damn it.
Hello, boys.
You have intro music now?
It's all because of our new corporate overlords. I sold the podcast to Disney.
You did what?
You're now part of the Disney Global Mega Corporation. They already own everything worth owning, and now they own you too.
Oh god. Does this mean I'm a Disney princess now?
I think it means we're all Disney princesses.
Tight.
How can you just sell us out like that? Being independent is how we're able to cover such a wide variety of games.
Variety doesn't make me money. Disney makes me money. Why, with the money I made selling the podcast, I could buy a whole sandwich. Maybe even two.
So, let me guess. We're only allowed to cover Disney games now.
According to the blood pact I made with Walt Disney's frozen head, I mean the contract I signed on your behalf, yes.
Well, that's just perfect. Anything else you want to demand of us while you're here?
Yes! Take this pack money and buy me a sandwich. Later, boys!
What are you doing?
I'm searching Amazon for a crown.
Tight.
What?
Hello everyone and welcome to episode 20 of the Retro Odyssey podcast. I'm your host as always, Adam, and I'm joined as ever by Steve, Ryan and Matt. How you doing, guys?
Yeah, not bad.
Not
Very
too shabby.
Nice one. So what have you been up to this month? Alt or not?
Work, mostly.
Fun.
Yeah, same.
And,
I'm just back at work. The problem is holidays, I get a nice long summer holiday and then it's back to the grindstone with everything full on. Have you been playing anything or not had much time?
I've been playing a little bit. I think the ones I've been playing lately are still more Diablo, and I started playing Final Fantasy 13.
Are you playing like a Final Fantasy game or something at the moment, Matt? You're playing 14 or something, I think?
Yeah, the MMO. I've been playing that for a year now, actually.
Oh, right, okay. I thought it was just like another entry into the series.
No, 11 and 14 are MMOs.
Right, so 13 is its own game, and then 14 is an MMO, so there's no 14 that's an actual story.
There's an actual story, it's just a lot longer to get through.
Oh, right, okay, so it is still like a full-on game, it's just online as an MMO.
Yes.
Yeah, in fact, it's one of the best stories they've written.
Okay, does it play differently to a normal one? Because I just thought there were like these single-player JRPG experiences that last, forever.
You do have like a lot of the normal MMO concessions, like you've got hotkeys for abilities, stuff like that, and obviously you've got multiplayer dungeons and stuff like that. But a lot of the game, a lot of the story stuff is stuff that you do single player.
Okay, so I mean, it still effectively plays very similar to the other games. It's just online with other people.
Yeah, there's just like a load of other people around, and there's huge amount of content as well. Obviously, you've got to keep bringing out content consistently in order to keep people paying the subscription.
Oh, yeah, I guess so. But I mean, it works for some games, like World of Warcraft's been going on forever.
And that game has no content.
And that game has no content, but for some reason it has loads of players.
It does have a fair bit. I mean, I played that from 2008 to I think the last time I logged onto it was about January this year. And I will probably go back to it when the next expansion comes out. I've got no real interest in it at the minute. I have gone more into, as I say, Final Fantasy XIV, which is holding my attention at the minute. Because WoW has kind of been on this decline, kind of, and a lot of the time I was logging in and thinking, I don't really want to do anything. I'm just logging in for the sake of it.
No, fair enough. Well, as long as you're enjoying this. I mean, I think you've played enough World of Warcraft by now to be able to, move on to something new.
There is an attachment with MMOs, especially if you've been playing, like I have, the exact same character. Like, my main character is the one that I created, like, on day one when I started playing. And I've been playing that character throughout. So there is an attachment there, and that is probably the one thing that will actually bring me back, because I want to go back to that character that I created.
Yeah. All right, nice one. I mean, for me, I've been playing Mario Maker again, as always, but I seem to be reducing my time with it a fair bit. Been diving into Astral Chain as well, which is okay. I mean, it sort of looks pretty. I mean, it looks pretty, like, artistically. It's really good. But then there are some times, like, there's this one bit where a dude's on a floor, and you look at the shadow, and the shadow's all pixelated. Like, you can see all the individual pixel gradients. And it's like, well, this looks a bit shit. And the actual combat itself it's not bad. I mean, it's kind of good in theory. Like, you can tie people up using the chain. You can bring out different legions, and they've got special abilities. So there's one with a sword that can be used to, cut things, as you would expect. But there are enemies that, like, provide shields, for example. And you can use a sword to cut the communication link between them, so they're then defenseless. It's real neat in practice, but it's quite fiddly. And then, like, the other part of the game is, like, detective work. But it's, when you play really shit investigation games, and it's just, like, collect all the things, and it's kind of guides you to everything you need to do. It's like that, but worse. Because you collect all the information, and you get, like, a quiz, basically, on what's going on. But if you say the wrong answers, it doesn't matter, it just moves on, and you get fewer points. And that's it. So it just feels a bit like a waste of time. So it's like, there's no real incentive for me to pay attention, and there's no real thinking about it. Because even then, there's no thinking about what's going on. It's literally just, have you been paying attention? So, like, it's not a bad game. It's just kind of, I kind of just want to get through it at this moment.
I find it humorous that it actually has a point system.
Yeah, it's weird. I mean, like, the points are used towards, I think it's like for buying stuff and buying upgrades and things. So there is a point, but it's never really required. At least I get that feeling now, and I'm like halfway through. The story itself's pretty good. I mean, it's very anime, and it kind of has the predictable, your boss is kind of a bad guy, or at least that's what it seems like so far. And, these brother and sister, they've got daddy issues. And it's kind of like, okay, not kind of stuff we haven't seen before. But it's, right. I mean, the story is sort of decent enough. That's what's keeping me invested at the moment, is the story. And the fact that it's full of, like, saving cats, which is cool. But yeah.
It's full of saving cats.
Yeah, there's, like, people say, like, my cat's over there and it won't come to me. Can you go and pick it up for me? It likes getting distracted by cans, so maybe kicking around a can might make it like you. It's like literally this woman's like 3 meters away from a cat, and she asks you to go and pick it up for her.
Am I right in thinking that your cat talks as well?
I've not experienced that yet. There is a talking dog, but it's like a girl in a dog costume.
Oh.
Yeah, like, it's weird because she pretends that the dog mascot is like a separate person. So she's like, oh, where's Lappy gone to? Or, like, she'll see the costume laid out, and it'll be like, there you are, Lappy, and pretend like it's a completely separate person, even though everyone knows that this woman is the one who's inside the costume. But it's really weird, because it's inside a police station as well. But it's like a high school. And the music that plays in the police station is like a fucking disco rave. And it's like, okie dokie, it's a bit weird. Like, the whole it's a really cool concept, but it's just not very fun. And that's the main problem with it, is the gameplay is just kind of bland. So I'm a bit disappointed because, like, Bayonetta I love, but this is just kind of, never mind. Anyway, we've spoken to, like, Steve and Matt, but Ryan, have you been playing out?
I got into Guacamelee
Yeah.
just a few days ago.
That's
or
a good
Guacamelee too.
Oh, right, okay, the second. I've not played the second. I've played a bit of the first, but not the second.
I mean, it kind of depends on how much you like Metroidvanias, because that's what it is, except it's
Second.
it's super good. But, like, you know how it was like, oh yeah, and Guacamelee is just packed full of video game and pop culture references.
Yeah. This is the same.
It's the same, and even more so. When you get into the very beginning, the game opens up essentially like Symphony of the Night,
All right.
where you walk along, except instead of Richter, you're Juan, and you stroll up to the boss, and they just recreate the dialogue.
All right. That's cool.
And then you go and have a super easy boss fight. And yeah, it immediately pops around and does more pop culture references and more jokes, and it's a bit more self-aware. And it's just great. And it plays just as well as the old one. And true to Metroidvania, you lose all your abilities.
Honestly, I've kind of gone off Metroidvania recently. I mean, I think for maybe the last year or two, I've just completely gone off the genre. I think it's just because it's so oversaturated now that it's, unless it's something special, most of them just feel like, oh yeah, it's another Metroidvania style game. Like Bloodstained I was excited for because, it's the Castlevania guy, so I knew it was going to be good, and it was good. And there was one I played called Yoku's Island Express, which I played because I heard it was really short, so that kind of instantly grabbed me because I thought, it's not going to be one I'm going to spend ages on. And they mix the Metroidvania with pinball, because you're effectively like a postal service worker, and you're going around delivering mail and sorting out some problems like that. And the whole world's built around like a pinball machine. And it's really interesting. Like, I don't like pinball games, but it's really simple, so it's never annoying, but it's fun enough where you're like, okay, this is a really cool gimmick. So those are the only two in like recent history where I've thought they're really good. And the rest are just like, they're fine. Like,
Sounds fun.
Yeah, I mean, there's a game that's come out recently which has been getting good reviews, but like, I just can't get any kind of hype behind it. Blasphemous. I mean, it looks really pretty, and it looks like and sounds like it's going to be a great game, but I don't know, nothing about it seems to like want to hook me. And the fact that it's a Metroidvania just kind of makes me think, Like, I'm waiting for my backer code from, the Game Kitchen or whoever the developers are, because it still hasn't arrived for some reason. But I'm probably just going to get rid of it when I get it, because honestly, I just don't think I'll play it, like, at least for another few years maybe, or until I get that, that sensation of wanting to play one again.
It is very difficult, but it looks beautiful. It is a really, really, really nice looking game in like that pixel art style.
Well, I have heard that it's like Symphony of the Night, where it starts out really tough and you're wanting to get the next checkpoint as soon as possible. But then as you start to get more abilities and powers, it then starts to kind of level out. Because like Symphony of the Night at the start's pretty tough. So I think it might be like that potentially.
Yeah.
But I'm not sure. Anyway, yeah, you've played the beta, so what are your impressions of it?
I died a lot, and like I said, I enjoyed the atmosphere, the hints of story that it gives you, but other than that, yeah, it is super difficult. I really struggle with super difficult games because I'm not brilliant at the kind of thing. It's a shame because games like that, Dark Souls, Bloodborne especially, they interest me so much. I mean, the lore, the world.
But the difficulty.
It's like, I wish I was good enough to get through these because they just look fascinating. And being a horror fan, that is totally my kind of thing. But I can't get through them.
Yeah. You know what? There's a lot of people that kind of argue about difficulty now, saying it's against the developer's vision and stuff like that, so it should just be what it is. But
Bollocks.
yeah, to me, that's what normal mode is. Normal mode is the developer's intention. Hard mode is for people that have beaten the game, want a further challenge, and easy mode is for people that, just aren't good enough for normal mode, so they want an easier time so they can experience it. That's what the difficulty level's all about. I mean, what was it? There was one game I played, and it just has a normal mode. But if you die like 50 times, then the game goes, right, okay, you suck, here's an easy mode. And
I mean, shoot, Super Mario 3D World hands you the gold Tanuki suit after you die a certain amount of times in a level.
yeah, I mean, like the Nintendo games, they don't have difficulty modes per se, but it's like, okay, you're dying, here's an assist. Like, even the newer ones, it gets to a point where it's like, do you want Luigi to beat it for you? And then you can move on.
Right.
And I don't necessarily see the problem in that. Because, if you want to continue, then, some people aren't very good at games. Some people don't have the patience or the time. Like for me, like difficult games, if I'm enjoying it and I'm feeling that I'm progressing, I'll stick with it. But if not, then I start to lose patience because it's a time investment learning to get good with a game. And if it's not that good, or if you don't feel like you're making a lot of progress or it's overly difficult, then you kind of think, why should I put in that time investment? I don't really feel it's worth it. Like Dark Souls is overly difficult. I got that game on the 360 and I just felt like I wasn't really getting anywhere. And I just thought, yeah, it's not for me. I probably could have mastered it, but it just kind of felt like the game was intentionally fucking me over. So I was like, okay, I've had enough of this.
And see, the crazy thing about Dark Souls for me is I'm someone who doesn't really like hard games, but because I have a paranoid nature, I end up doing really well at Dark Souls because I don't try to
Because you're always
barrel
looking
through.
out.
Yeah, I'm always got my head on a swivel. So like, something tries to sneak up on me, I'm like, "Oh, no you don't."
Yeah, I suppose that's the other thing as well, is like, because of my impatience, sometimes I'm sort of careful, but sometimes I'm not. And I feel like in an action game, I tend not to be. If it's like survival horror, yeah, I'll be really careful. Stuff like Alien Isolation or Resident Evil, I'll be careful. But then if it's like a hack and slash game or an action game, I don't really feel that need to be overly careful all the time. So then I just get screwed over.
And that's where they get you. Dark Souls is not an action game, it's an RPG.
Well, yeah. But as I say, even then, I could probably still get to grips with it if I invested some time in it. But then there are people that aren't as good. But as Matt says, he's a massive fan of horror. And he really likes the lore. So why say to people like Matt, okay, this game's really for you, but we're not going to let you enjoy it because we want it to be difficult. Get good.
Mm-hmm.
I think, there's no shame in having that, even if you want them to have a good shot. I mean, stuff like Dark Souls, they think that the combat is rewarding. So even if for that, they say, okay, die 50 times, 100 times, whatever, before you'll unlock the easy mode, just so we know you've given it a fair shot. And then if you really can't do it, fine, here you go. If you want people to try, do that maybe.
I mean, some games
Right.
do have adaptable difficulty as well. I mean,
Resident Evil, for example.
Yeah, Resident Evil 4, we didn't bring it up last month, but depending on how well you do, the game will be made easier or harder.
I mean, to be fair, that game is still pretty challenging anyway, so even though it's adaptive, it's not overly adaptive. If you really suck, then you're probably going to struggle with it anyway. But still, that kind of adaptive difficulty is a good idea.
Yeah.
Probably quite hard to implement, to be honest, but, I still think it's a good approach. And if you're wanting to be difficult but fair, maybe that's another idea. Anyway, I think we've ranted for a difficulty a bit too long. We'll take a little bit of a break and let's move on to the news.
Oh no! The water! Oh, I'm in big trouble if I don't fetch it!
Okay, on to the news for this month. We've got a few interesting topics. The first of which is one lucky person has now won our limited edition Steelbook version of Resident Evil 4 for the PS2, and that is Colton Drennan. So congratulations, that is on its way to you.
Congratulations, well done.
A winner is you.
And on to the main news topics. The first one is Mega Man Zero-ZX Legacy Collection is coming out on January the 21st, which has got 6 games in it.
Which is great timing as well, because I have quite a fair bit to play this year, so coming in January means I'm probably going to get to play it when it comes out.
It also means I'll get to play ZX and ZX, I don't remember what the subtitle of the second one. I never got to play them before. They got quite expensive.
Yeah. I never played any of them. In fact, I was kind of debating which Mega Man series to dive into next, but hey, the Zero and ZX ones are, going to be lined up for me, so it seems to make sense to go into that.
It'll be a pretty interesting switch up for you because where Mega Man is a run-and gun, ZX is a hack and slash, really, if you're going to play it the fastest.
So does it feel like, say, for example, Mega Man X4, but when you play as Zero, where you're using all the sword stuff?
Except it feels good.
Alright, so it's just a polished version.
Yeah.
Is Zero and ZX like a continuation then? So Zero is a spin-off of X, and ZX is a spin-off of Zero?
Yeah, Zero takes place after the Maverick Wars, so well after Mega Man X8.
Okay.
Like, I honestly think it's like 100 or 200 years later. And then ZX is like another 150 years later.
Oh, okay.
After what happens. So yeah, it's a spin-off, but it's like like they put a huge gap in there just in case they want to make more games.
Alright, so it's basically a continuation of the Zero story, but with a huge gap in the middle.
Yeah.
Alright, that's cool. I'd say it probably makes sense to go into those next because, the X series was the last bunch I went through. But yeah, I'm quite excited about that. And they're actually putting all the games on the CD or cart or whatever, which is probably a first for Capcom.
Yeah, right. They finally figured it out. They're like, oh, there's room. We can put all of it on here.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, there's room anyway. I mean, for example, the Mega Man Classic series. They're fucking NES games. How are you not going to fit all of them on a cart? Seriously.
Well, yeah, and it's like people actually broke down how big the Collection 1 and 2 were, and there was plenty of room.
Yeah. I mean, you could fit all of them onto one, and it would have fit.
No, I want a 4 CD game. I want this spread out as much as they can.
Oh, no, why do that? There's 6 games. Let's put them on 6 CDs. Fuck it.
Oh, yeah, I was going to say I want 1 CD per game.
Yeah. Well, anyway, I mean, people are going, oh, yeah, Capcom have put all of it on one disc. And it's like, why are you celebrating that? That's what they just should have done in the first place.
And I want 3 of those games that you have to download. I want 6 CDs for 6 games, but 3 of them need to be downloaded.
Yeah. I mean, I'll be downloading them anyway, to be honest. So,
right.
It's not going to make any difference to me. It's just whenever I hear about them not putting it all on a disc, it's like, well, what's the point? Otherwise, you're just buying a crappy plastic case for the game if it's going to be digital only anyway, or half digital.
But it's nice for me.
Yeah, it's I think it's a Spyro collection. I remember seeing something about the Switch version, and I think they've got the first stage of something on the actual cart, and then the rest of it is a download.
Wow,
it's something really weird. I think it's the first stage of the first one, and then half the second one. And it's really odd. Why have you done that? Apart from being cheapskates and wanting, buy the smallest possible car. It's why do it in the first place if you're just going to cheap out on it? Just do it digital only. If you're going to be like that. Because it's the same.
Well, that's probably why they did it, just to save money. I mean, it was Activision.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. If they're going to be cheapskates, just do it digital only anyway. Because otherwise it's digital only, but with a plastic case that they're flogging you. Because if they did it digital only, then maybe we'd get like a limited run release instead, where they actually put some effort into it. Never mind. But yeah, more Mega Man. Well, hey, hopefully they do Legends or something next. Or Battle Network, or one of those.
Start doing Battle Network collections, holy shit.
Yeah, I mean, Battle Network's an RPG, so I probably won't like it. But I'd be up for trying it. If anything's going to get me playing an RPG, Mega Man's probably going to be up there.
I'm so glad you found this new vice.
Yeah.
Moving on to something a little bit more in my wheelhouse. Doom 64 is coming out for the Switch on November 22nd. I was hoping for a PC release as well. It doesn't seem like that's going to be happening. But Doom 64 is a decent game, hampered by the control system of the original release. So I actually have an unofficial PC port of it, which runs perfectly. It uses the same control scheme as the original Doom on PC. It would have been nice to get an official version of that, but I'm happy to buy it on Switch.
Yeah, hopefully they do an update control scheme to make it more playable.
I was going to say, didn't Doom also, Doom 64 run a little rough too?
Probably it was on the N64.
It runs perfectly on the PC port that I've got.
I would imagine and I would hope that this port would be with 60 frames per second, or at least, a solid 30. But the main thing with Doom 64, as Matt said, was the controls. I only played like the very first stage or something, and it's sort of like first-person shooter tank controls, so it feels really kind of stiff and awkward. Having a modern control scheme would definitely help that game a lot. I mean, they might not do anything, but if they're going to go to the effort of porting a game that's never been ported before, obviously officially, then I think they're going to put some effort into it. You would hope.
I mean, I will wait for reviews, and if they are still using like a really wonky control scheme, then I'm just going to stick with the one I've got.
Well, it's only like controller mapping and stuff, and because you have two sticks and things available, I don't see why they would. It would make no sense, because it is a 3D environment, and mapping controls to actually include like a proper, ability to strafe and move the camera with the right stick. I don't see why they wouldn't update the control scheme. I mean, it's modern Bethesda, so who fucking knows? Mm-hmm. But you would hope they would do a good job of it. But yeah, I'm very excited for that too, because I've never played Doom 64 in its entirety. Just played like the first stage for a bit, and that was it. But it looks good.
Also on the news this month, the almighty Terry Bogard has been added to Smash.
Or will be added.
Will be added.
Yeah, it's upcoming.
Yeah, Banjo's just been added, which is... Well, I say it's pretty great, but honestly, I've got it, and it's not so great.
I mean, I like Banjo enough. I don't think he's super duper, but...
No, I like Banjo. I love the Banjo games, but in-game, I can't control him very well. Like, I tried practicing against the AI, and I just lost both matches. And I'm not keen on Spiral Mountain as a stage.
I like Spiral Mountain as a stage, honestly.
Yeah, the rotation is interesting.
The rotation's interesting, but I find that the area's quite small for most of the time.
So it's super tight with small blast zones.
Yeah, it feels very claustrophobic, and I think it's just a little bit too small. But yeah, I think the design of it and the look of it and the rotation's quite interesting. But for me, it just feels too small to be like enjoyable. I love the music though. The Ryland music is great.
I was just about to ask if that's the stage that is a spiral around a mountain, and I just realised how stupid that would have sounded.
Yes, Spiral Mountain is the mountain with a spiral.
I remember the stage, yeah.
I have no idea what you're talking about, Matt.
But yeah, Terry Bogard has joined the fight, as they say.
Which is funny because it's like, oh yeah, it's got people from SNK. It's like, I guess you picked the one name from the one big SNK game that people know.
You see, it makes sense for me. Because you look at the ones that have been released so far, and for me, Banjo is the interesting one. But then for other people, it's other things. Like you've got Joker, which is the Persona one. You've got, is it Hero or something?
Hero from Dragon Quest.
Which is another very different fan base. You've got Banjo, and now you've got Terry. It's like they're appealing to different people, because even though SNK might not be big for, us guys, for example, like over in Japan or like big fighting fans, for example, really, really love SNK. And I've seen videos of people watching the reveal trailer for Terry and getting really psyched for it. And I think good for them. Because I think that's what they're trying to do with at least this first Fighters Pack, is they're trying to find something for everybody. Like there are some people that will like maybe 1, 2, perhaps 3 of them, but you're going to like at least one of them. And I think that's what they're going for, is that they just want at least one person to make people happy.
I mean, fair enough, but I just felt it was a little odd.
Yeah. I mean, I think the main funny thing really is that, when you look at NES, Pokemon Train and Terry Bogard, it looks like child, teenager and adult, because they're wearing very similar clothes.
Right.
So it looks like an evolution.
The Pokemon Trainer Evolution.
Yeah, which made me laugh when someone posted that and I saw it and I was like, yeah, it's funny because it's true.
Anyway, what else we got?
I think Konami have fucked up again. Well, not fucked up necessarily, but we got some more information on the TurboGrafx 16 Mini in the form of a picture comparing it to the originals. And the originals seem to show off that the TurboGrafx Mini isn't going to be very mini.
It is like quite a big console anyway, but
I'm sure it'll still be fine, because they did the retro collections for Contra and Castlevania, and the emulation was really good. So I imagine this will be fine. I just find it funny that they've made a mini console and completely forgot about the mini part.
Yeah, I mean, the size isn't really an issue for me personally. I might have to kind of like put my consoles slightly closer together to get it to fit on the shelves, but it's something that I've been interested in since they announced it, and this doesn't really put me off.
Yeah, as I just, it'll be interesting to see people like, Spawnwave or whatever opening up the console, because I imagine there's going to be a lot of space in there.
Well, yeah, and it's the Super Nintendo's not a tiny console either, but the NES, for what it is actually a very bulky console. And the TurboGrafx 16 Mini is big, whereas the NES Mini is small. It fits in the palm of your hand. The one thing I can appreciate, though, is that, hey, look, the TurboGrafx 16 Mini has a lot of games.
Yeah.
You know what doesn't have a lot of games?
Gone.
The NES Mini.
How many games did it have? Like 30 or something for the NES? Was it 30?
Yeah, 30.
Yeah, it's like 30, but a lot of them sick.
I think.
Was it a little bit less than that?
I believe it was 24.
All right. Yeah.
All I know is a lot of them aren't good.
Yeah, but I suppose then you've also got the thing of, having something on there for everyone. But then there are some games that are garbage, which nobody wants. But
Well, yeah, I mean, it's like, I like my NES. I like my NES collection. There's just a lot of games on there that are like, you got these, but you didn't put Arkanoid on there? Like...
Yeah, but you look at NES Online, and it's like, we're going to release 2 games a month. 2 shit games no one gives a crap about.
Yeah, again, it's like that, and then half the time it seemed like they're putting in special editions because they're like, wow, a lot of these games were super rough.
Yeah, well, no, they're doing like the special editions, but the special editions, it's like, we're going to put you before the final boss. And it's like, holy shit, this is lazy.
Yeah.
Because, it's like you could do something. You look at, for example, the Sega Ages games, and they actually do things to that. Like Outrun, you get, vehicle parts, which you unlock every time you do a route. So you can make things easier for yourself in further playthroughs. And you can do the harder routes with, like, turbo boost or better handling or whatever. And, it's just a nice little addition that really does make a difference. And then you look at the NES special editions, and it's like, yeah, we're just going to give you all the items and put you before the final boss. Thanks.
Take that.
That's worth it. Like some of these games, they've got fucking, like, for example, Metroid, there are cheat codes to give you all the items. You don't need a fucking special edition.
This is true.
You just saved me typing in a fucking cheat code. But, whatever.
But speaking of the Switch Online, we now have SNES games.
We do.
And this opening load of SNES games are actually way better than a year's worth of NES Online games.
Oh yeah, we like they
played.
They dumped in all the good shit like Super Mario World, Yoshi's Island, Metroid Prime, Star Fox.
Yeah, you got 2 Super Mario World games. You got Star Fox in there, Super Metroid, Super Mario Kart and stuff.
Link to the Past.
Pilot Wings.
Link to the Past.
Demon's Crest, I think, is on there.
Which I hadn't played any of that before, but I sat down and played it for about an hour. Pretty good.
Yeah, but you've got like these really good. Oh no, not Super Castlevania. Super Ghouls and Ghosts is what I meant.
Yeah, Super. I don't know about that. Games are hard.
Yeah, but still, you've got the rewind feature and everything. So
this is true.
You don't have much of an excuse these days. And yeah, I'm pretty happy with what they've released so far.
And obviously the huge show stealers there, Super Tennis and Super Soccer.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, I'm not overly familiar with the Super Nintendo because I never ever had one. So I'm familiar with some games that have been re-released, like Super Metroid, things like that, through the 3DS Virtual Console or what have you. But I'm not overly familiar with the rest of the library. But in terms of the stuff that I am familiar with, I think they've got most of the best stuff. I mean, there might be a few games missing that, could do with being on there. I mean,
Waiting for them to release Mario Paint.
Yeah. I mean, stuff like Super Contra and Super Castlevania, for example, they're on the Konami collections. You can get them by another means.
Right.
Really? What's missing? I mean, you people on the other side of the pond probably have a better idea because I think you're a bit more familiar with the Super Nintendo. Are there any major omissions at this stage?
At this stage, the Square Enix RPGs.
I was about to say, I can take a look at my Super Nintendo collection real fast. It's sitting right here.
I mean, okay, I'm looking at Chrono Trigger right now.
Donkey Kong Country 1 through 3.
Yep.
Those might be a bit more difficult to get. I don't know what the rights are like with that. I know that, because obviously you've got Donkey Kong Country, which they did remake, but they did it with different villains. So
but but Donkey Kong Country was put on the NES Mini, so
with the Kremlins,
with the SNES Mini, yeah, it's because Nintendo owns it.
Yeah.
The issue with those re-releases had nothing to do with the enemies or the game itself. It had to do with the fact that there were rare icons within the game, is what I heard, and that's why it took them a long time to get. Yeah. They didn't edit them out. They just had to basically get permissions from Microsoft and Rare. Because Donkey Kong 64 was put on the Virtual Console after quite a while, and they didn't and you can still go through and play Jetpack, which was a huge deal because it actually has Jetpack in the game.
Right.
Okay. Cool.
And you had to go through and they're like, yeah, we have to play this, and then you get a Rareware coin. And I guess they just had to go get permissions and stuff to clear that, and then it's fine. So
right.
Well, if they got it for the Mini and stuff, then presumably there'll be no issue in getting it on the SNES Online because they've already got the permissions.
Right, yeah, and that's the thing is it's they're gonna do what they always do and give them to us in a slow feed.
It also begs the questions: what other games could they get the rights to? Because I mean, stuff like Diddy Kong Racing, for example. Or Donkey Kong 64. I mean, they have issues. Obviously, Diddy Kong Racing now has stuff like Tip Top and Banjo and Conker in it. So that could be more problematic. But they are using Nintendo characters.
I mean, the other thing...
Nintendo would want to try and get those for a potential N64 Online or an N64 Mini.
The other thing to keep in mind when you're talking about Rare now is that Microsoft seems very willing to play ball with Nintendo and, other platforms. So, I mean, I think we will see more cooperation here.
What other Rareware games were on this SNES? Is it just the Donkey Kong Country games?
Killer Instinct and Donkey Kong Country seem to be the only Rare games on the SNES.
Yeah, they just fucking ruled on the N64.
Yeah. That's why if they could get N64 games, I mean, that would be a big deal. I mean, if they end up doing an N64 online service and got, the Rareware games on there.
I mean, here's the thing. They could also just... Well, they could also just give us. Actually, wait, Golden. As I was gonna say, they could just give us the rare replay on Switch, but GoldenEye wasn't on there.
They
Nope.
couldn't do GoldenEye anyway because you've got issues with is it EA that does GoldenEye now? Because you've got the movie company rights, whoever has the game rights, which is maybe like EA or Activision or someone.
Well, that and GoldenEye already has its own problems too with unlicensed likenesses.
Yeah, they got in a lot of trouble for that.
So I think there's like a lot of issues rights with GoldenEye, and honestly, I think it's very, very unlikely that we would see that again. I think at the very best, we may get a remake if Rareware ever got the permissions to make another Bond game and decided to remake.
We did get a remake once, and
It was bad.
Everyone was all excited, and then they shut up about it.
Well, that wasn't a remake. That
Yeah,
was
it was.
that was basically like another version of the GoldenEye film, but
It was supposed to be a remaster remake, and it was a completely different fucking game.
well, that's the thing. It's a completely different game. It doesn't really share any of the levels, to be honest. So it's completely different. I mean, it follows the same story, but yeah, I don't necessarily consider it a remake of the N64 one. It's just a different GoldenEye game. But I mean, even if you leave out GoldenEye, you know, the Rare N64 library is pretty damn good.
Oh, it's huge.
Yeah, so I mean, even if they got Rare Replay over minus the 360 games, it'd still be pretty good.
But once again, Microsoft is willing to play ball. I mean, they're putting their games on the Switch, so I wouldn't see any reason to take those out of there.
Yeah, Banjo
Yeah.
just appeared in Smash literally like last week.
Yeah,
The problem with the 360 games is that they weren't built into the game. What happened on the Xbox One is that it loaded up the Xbox Live versions or Xbox 360 versions of those games.
Right.
So
okay.
they would have to port over the 360 games.
You
And
are correct.
so say they'd be porting over like, I don't know, half a dozen 360 games. And I think the effort probably wouldn't be worth it. But I mean, even if they just went, okay, it won't include the 360 games, but they have this. Because they could even make their own. Because a lot of those games on there were just emulations, you know, for
Yeah.
especially the older stuff. So I could see why they couldn't do like a Nintendo edition of it. And then they could include things like Diddy Kong Racing, Donkey Kong 64,
Right.
the Kong Country games. So you don't get the 360 ones, but then you get some of the Nintendo properties.
Right. You get
Rareware.
the most notable omissions from Rare Replay because they were Nintendo IP.
Exactly. Because obviously with Nintendo, you could use the Nintendo IPs. So I think that would more than make up for it.
Yeah, I'd drop $60 on that.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely.
Damn, why aren't we in charge of Microsoft? We would get them to fucking do this. It would make
Also,
sense to me as well.
I'm confident that we had this same exact conversation several months ago.
Probably.
Like almost verbatim.
Yeah. I mean, we'll definitely see at least the original Banjo-Kazooie, I'm sure. Even though they haven't announced it yet, I'm pretty sure that they're going to get the original Banjo-Kazooie on there just because we've got him in Smash.
Yeah, I think it's probably happening.
Right.
Because, I mean, really, they had no reason to have him in Smash because most people are probably going to get the Fighters Pass anyway. And in order to get, you know, the license from Microsoft, presumably Microsoft will be benefiting from the transaction, at least from publicity. So it would not make any sense for Nintendo to get nothing from the deal. So I don't know. I think we're going to get Banjo.
I mean, what Nintendo gets out of it is goodwill from the fans that have been demanding Banjo for years.
Yeah, not much of a financial incentive though, because they've got a lot of goodwill anyway with Smash, because Smash has literally everything in it and everyone.
Yeah.
So I don't think they necessarily needed it. They introduced stuff like Ridley and King K. Rool. I don't think they necessarily needed the goodwill, to be honest.
Yeah.
But there you go.
Well, you know they're going to fuck up something in the next generation, so they need to stock up.
Yeah. Anyway, we've probably been repeating ourselves, as Ryan quite rightly pointed out, so let's move on to the next news topic. What you got for us, Matt?
Okay, the next one is something from a company called Terra Onion. They've released something called the Mega SD. Basically, it's an FPGA cart with the ability to play Mega Drive and Mega CD games from SSD, the cart basically emulates the Mega CD, Sega CD unit without needing the actual hardware, and allows you to play CD games from a SD chip.
Interesting.
They previously released one for the PC Engine, which emulated the CD drive for that. And they've just released last month this Mega CD version, this Mega SD.
Nice.
And it'll work on your normal Mega Drive, it'll work on your Analog SG, it'll even work on the Nomad. So you can actually play Mega CD games on your little handheld Nomad if you want.
Holy crap.
Well, little handheld Nomad.
I mean, it's not that little, but yeah.
It's officially now the most portable disc-based system.
It is a bit pricey though. You're looking at $260 or
Right.
230 euros.
Fucking hell. We'll give that one a skip.
Yeah, but it is the first time that a company has been able to emulate the Mega CD in this way. And like I said, it is all on a cartridge. You don't need the CD add-on at all.
That saves outlets because Sega just loved their wall warts. And also, it's like, yeah, working CDs are getting rarer and more expensive.
Yeah.
And then getting Sega CD games that are still in good condition are also getting a little bit rare. Not more expensive, because there weren't a whole lot of great games. Some of them are really expensive.
I mean, luckily my CD unit is actually modded to play CDRs, so I don't have to so much worry about disc rot, stuff like that.
Right.
Well, there you go.
You could just rip a new one. Well, because, yeah, the Sega CD didn't even have any DRM of any manner, did they?
I'm not sure, to be honest. Mine doesn't anyway.
Yeah, I'm not sure. But I mean, it's still pretty cool. It's a neat idea. Because, as you say, you don't really have to worry about disc rot or anything like that, with it all being cart-based, which I think is kind of important these days, because that physical media ain't going to last forever. Especially like with discs and stuff, it's so easy to rot away.
And really, this is just a new version, or this is essentially a new EverDrive, except it's the Mega CD EverDrive. And all of those are hella expensive.
Yeah, that's true. Because they're, I think, they're about 100 quid or so each.
Yeah.
And
I think
it can support up to a 400 gig SD card as well, which will carry the entire CD library.
That's cool.
Yeah.
I mean,
Probably
the
like
CD library
70 times over.
Yeah.
The Mega CD library is like, what, 10 games or something? I'm joking, of course, but it still wasn't very...
I think it's somewhere around 18, 90. I'm not entirely sure.
Yeah, wasn't particularly sizable, but there you go. But yeah, it's definitely a good thing to have. I mean, people complain about like emulation stuff and talk about piracy, but, I think that's going to change. I think as soon as stuff starts getting older and people start realising, shit, things aren't working anymore. I mean, like my N64, for example. N64s were supposed to be like nuke-proof, but mine stopped working. So I've had to, get a new one. And yeah, physical stuff isn't going to last forever, and there's going to be a point when I'm not going to be able to replace it. Like, for example, N64 controllers are getting quite expensive because those analog sticks just keep dying.
I was about to say, but you know what? 23 years?
It's not bad.
That's pretty good. Yeah. Let's go another 10 years, and you show me a Gen 1 Xbox 360 that's still working.
Oh yeah, shit. I mean, like, my left Joy-Con's getting fucking Joy-Con drift again. And I've sent in my Joy-Cons on 4 occasions to get them repaired or replaced from Nintendo, just because something's up with them. Three times it's been drift, and one time one of the buttons on the right Joy-Con, like, when you take it off the, like, I think it's SR buttons, L and SR, the tiny ones, one of those stopped working and the LED didn't light up. So, like, I've had the Switch for, what, I don't know, how long's it been, like 2 years or however long it's been out, and already I've had to replace the Joy-Con so many times.
Yeah.
Which is pretty bad.
I don't know, that's so weird, because, like, I've never had any problems out of my Joy-Cons.
Neither have I.
Same.
Thing is, what's odd as well is that normally Nintendo make really good quality products. I mean, you look at stuff like the GameCube, the NES, the SNES, the N64, whatever. Even stuff like the Wii and Wii U, and they're pretty sturdy pieces of equipment. But then, like, the Switch, the Joy-Cons are a bit poo. I mean, they're really good design, but they just keep breaking. And I've mentioned this before, but the kickstand on the Switch is like the flimsiest thing in the stupidest place. And it's like, the Switch is a great machine. However, it does have some design faults which are really odd for Nintendo. You wouldn't expect them from, like, Nintendo at all. I mean, I love the Switch, but it does have faults, particularly hardware ones.
Okay, well, we have one more news item, and that is the quite surprise announcement of an Aladdin and Lion King collection, which is coming out on October 29th and will include, I believe, 6 different versions of the...
Not quite. It's sort of 6, but sort of not. You've got the Mega Drive Aladdin, the SNES Lion King, and then you've got the Aladdin and Lion King Game Boy games, and then the Super Game Boy versions. So the Super Game Boy, correct me if I'm wrong, was that the addition to the SNES?
Yes.
Yes.
And work on
Yes.
console? Yeah. So you've got like 5 versions, I suppose. Yeah, you've got the Game Boy versions for each. You've got the Aladdin and Lion King ones. Oh, no, I was right before. Yeah, there's 4 different versions. You've got the Game Boy versions and you've got the console versions. So you've got 4 games.
That's a shame, too, because I never played the Game Boy version of Aladdin, but the Super Nintendo version of Aladdin is quite fantastic.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Well,
It's totally different than the Genesis, but it's quite good.
Well, I know that the SNES version of Aladdin's completely different because it was a Capcom game. And the Game Boy one, I don't know, I'd have to have a look. Because I know they made a version for the Master System, and that was a very, very different game. It was cool, but completely different. And I'm hoping that the Game Boy version of Aladdin is basically that, because that was really fun. As for Lion King, from what I can see, it seems like the Game Boy version is more or less the same as the console, just scaled down. So probably not going to be great.
The Lion King is like the Dark Souls of the 90s. That is
So hard.
That is a difficult
Well-
game. I have never gotten past the Stampede level in that game.
Well, the thing is,
I don't think
with
I've ever
Lion
gotten
King,
that far.
the SNES version is supposed to be harder. And it's supposed to be harder, but it's also got more like issues as well. There are like more bugs or something in that version. So it's weird that they chose that version, because the SNES version is effectively the same as the Mega Drive, just not as good, which is weird. It'd have been better off doing like the SNES Aladdin and Mega Drive Lion King if you're going to do one of each. But
Last time I played The Lion King, I played it on the Genesis on a tiny CRT that I guess the brightness would, like the screen was going, because even at max brightness and everything turned up, it looked like completely muddied and like nighttime mode. It was super dark. So basically I was playing nightmare mode. And it was insanely hard.
yeah, I mean, the difficulty in Lion King is really odd because it starts out relatively simple and then it just takes a spike. Like, you've got a really weird section in, I think it's the second level, where it's the I Just Want to Be King level, and you're swinging from like the tails of things, which is a bit
Yes.
awkward. And then it gets easier and then it gets harder again. And the difficulty is just kind of all over the place. It's consistently challenging, but then you get like these huge spikes of difficulty.
Well, Aladdin kind of has a spike like that as well. You know, when you get to later on in the game, you get that kind of like Battletoads TMNT kind of skateboarding. I mean, it's not a skateboard, it's flying carpet in this one, where you've got to go like up and down, kind of like the sewer level in TMNT, where you're
Yeah.
rushing along, and you've got that.
I mean, I don't think that'd be too difficult, but that bit, because you get like up down, fair enough. And then suddenly it just goes, question mark. And it's like, fuck you, game.
What the fuck does that mean?
And then the level after that, that's my kind of like break point for Aladdin. I can't get past the level in the lamp. There's some really difficult platforming stuff in that level.
Oh, you're talking about the genie levels?
Yeah.
It's not. But what makes it harder, that level, is that the hitboxes for everything are just janky as hell. So getting like the right jumps on the balloons and, holding on stuff is really awkward. And there's a lot of times where you'll fuck up and you'll think, that shouldn't have happened. And it just felt like bullshit, which is unfortunate. Another thing that's unfortunate is the fucking price of it. Is it like 40 quid or something?
Really?
Yeah.
I think it's like 40 euros or something. It's pretty expensive. And you look at the footage, and I don't know if it was just for the trailer that they were showing the footage from the original games, but it basically looks the same. Like they probably upraised it to HD and added like the rewinds and stuff in. But it looks like the original games, but just upscaled. I mean, it's not like, for example, DuckTales looks very different. You've got stuff like Castle of Illusion, which is a completely different game. They made it 3D.
Right.
But this looks basically the same, and it's like, I do like those games. And if there was ever a sale that got it down to, 10 or less, then I'd probably buy it. But at that price, you can keep it, mate.
I mean, that is insane. I mean, considering Konami, of all companies, managed to put out the Castlevania collection with, I think, like 8 games on it for less than 20.
Oh, yeah. I mean, like Capcom, people complaining that they were releasing the Resident Evil games for 30 quid a pop. But, I mean, if you compare, like, the Resident Evil games compared to Lion King and Aladdin, I mean, those aren't long games. And if you've got a rewind feature in them, you're going to complete each one within an hour, easily, if you've got a rewind function to sort your fuck-ups. You're going to beat all 4 games in, 4 hours? Easily. And the Game Boy versions are probably very similar. So you probably won't play those anyway. I'm just having a double check on the price, but I'm pretty sure that it is, as I say, like 40 quid or something, or 40 euros or something like that.
Yeah, I'm not going to be paying that for a bunch of ports.
Oh, hell no. Like, as I say, if they do like a really good sale, then sure. But if not, then bollocks done. Oh, no, it's not 40, it's 30.
That's not so bad.
It is. 30 quid for, like, a Mega Drive game and a SNES game, effectively. And then the poor man's Game Boy ports of them. They've got, upscaled graphics, filters, customizable controls for all those buttons that they use, and a rewind feature.
I bet the Mega Drive versions had customizable controls as well.
Well, they've got like different control options, but you've got like a few different control options to switch between, and because there are only like 3 buttons, then yeah, it's basically customizable controls. But you look at something like, I think the SNK 40th Anniversary Collection, which had maybe 20 odd games or something in it.
That's bloody expensive as well.
I mean, how much is that? Because isn't that like 30 quid or something?
That was about 30, 40, because that is something that I would really be interested in getting, but I am just not paying the RRP price on that.
Yeah, but if you look at that SNK collection, that's like, what, 30, 40 quid? And this is 30 quid for effectively 2 games. Possibly 3 if the Aladdin version on the Game Boy is completely different.
Yeah.
That's a really, really steep price, because it's going to be like, would you pay 10 quid for a Mega Drive game?
No.
Which was scaled to HD?
Depends on the game.
I wouldn't. I mean, if you had an upscaled HD version of, like, say, a Japanese SNES game that had been translated to English and upraised to HD, maybe. I suppose, like, Mother... Is it Mother 3 that everyone's asking for, or Mother 2?
Yeah.
Mother 3, yeah.
Mother 3. Say, for example, they brought Mother 3 over, translated, upraised to HD. Yeah, tenner for that, fair enough. But when you've got, like, a really short platformer that's just been upraised to HD, no, thanks.
You're talking to somebody who paid $60 for a Secret of Mana cartridge without questioning it.
Well, to be fair, though, Secret of Mana can often run $180-200.
Yeah, so
Whereas like Aladdin, you can pick up for maybe less than a tenner, like 5-10 quid for the actual original version.
Yeah.
And in-box and everything.
I mean, hell, all I gotta do is get into that closet and dig it out.
Exactly. I mean, that topic, though, does lead us nicely into our main topic for today as well. Because our main topic for today is Disney.
Speaking of Disney, how about that Disney?
Exactly. So what we'll do is we'll take a little bit of a breather and we'll jump in and we'll discuss some Disney games in a bit more detail, other than Aladdin and Lion King, of course. See you after the jump.
Gorsh, I'm Goofy. Should we do the thing?
Right, so after that little bit of a breather and a nice little musical interlude, we're going to continue talking about our Disney topic. Obviously, we've just recently talked about Lion King and Aladdin with the recent collection, but one thing that Disney did like a lot back of in the day was making platforming games based on the films. I mean, Lion King and Aladdin are the big ones, but, you know, what other ones were particularly memorable to you back in the day?
I don't know, we already talked about the two that I had.
Yeah, I mean, for me, with the movie licenses for Disney, Lion King and Aladdin are the two that spring to mind. I know there was stuff like Little Mermaid and Beauty and the Beast. They had games. But
Yeah, they had games, but I didn't have them.
Yeah, they had them, but we fucking sure as shit didn't.
I did have the Jungle Book when I was a kid. I believe that was for the Master System, but I don't really remember much about it.
Yeah, me too. I remember there being a Jungle Book game, but I can't for the life of me remember anything about it.
It's probably quite rare now because for some reason Disney do not merchandise the Jungle Book for whatever reason. So the fact that there was a game is actually quite odd, really.
It's strange because wasn't that their first live action remake? I'm trying to think if they didn't. You know, when they started all this live action remake malarkey these days, I think Jungle Book was the first one, wasn't it? That they decided to do.
Yes, I believe so. I think Jungle Book first, then Lion King. No, Jungle Book, then Beauty and the Beast, then Lion King, and you've got Little Mermaid in production.
What about Cinderella?
Did they do Cinderella? Live action?
Yes, they do.
Oh, I missed that.
Yeah, it was directed by Kenneth Branagh, which is why it was so good.
All right.
Wait, they did a live-action Cinderella? When?
Yeah, and it was great.
What was it called? Was it just called Cinderella, or did it have like a strange name?
I think it was just Cinderella. Like I think the actual first of the new, 3D remake or live action remake thing was Maleficent.
Yeah, I was about to say, I think Maleficent hit first.
Yeah, it's true.
But yeah, Cinderella, apparently that was marketed exclusively to Stephen.
Yeah, seemingly. I've never liked the Cinderella story. It never really sat well with me. Because I always got the impression that the writer never knew how shoes work.
Yeah, like...
Because the fact that there's an entire party and it's just one woman with that size shoe seems a bit odd.
Yeah, like this movie is the one version of Cinderella's story that I actually liked.
Why did they make that make sense?
The
Yeah, a
original
little bit.
fairy tale has the stepsisters cutting off their toes to fit into the shoe.
Yeah.
Nice.
It's nice.
But yes, so
Classic.
like Stephen in this one, does like Cinderella have clown feet or something?
No, it's that element of it is still there, but they actually give the characters more, character. Where like the prince, I think the prince has a name in this one, which he didn't originally.
Really?
Yeah.
I can't remember the prince's name, and that's probably the reason why. It
Oh
was
no,
meant-
the prince
Isn't he
did
good
not
at
have a
Prince
name.
Oh, it's just the prince?
that seems very lazy.
Yeah, his name was literally just the prince, and then people started calling him Prince Charming.
I thought Prince Charming was Sleeping Beauty.
No, in Sleeping Beauty he actually had a name. It was Prince Philip.
Oh.
In Snow White
Philip.
and Cinderella.
Prince Philip. Really?
Yeah, in Snow White and Cinderella they didn't have names.
Okay. I'm just imagining, like, the actual Prince Philip.
He rescued Sleeping Beauty by driving his car into the tower.
Hello. Wake up, darling. Oh, bless him. Oh, I'll tell you what I did play. I completely forget that this is actually a Disney game. Toy Story. That's Disney, innit?
Yes.
For some reason, like, I always think of Disney as in, you know, The Little Mermaid, Aladdin, Lion King, Fantasia, things like that. But
I think about Pixar.
I never think of Toy Story as Disney, because obviously you've got Pixar, which moved into that kind of, that style of animation.
Mm.
But yeah, Toy Story was a game that I had for the Mega Drive. Did you guys play that? I don't know if it was on the SNES. Presumably it was.
Toy Story was
I've
released
never
on the
played
SNES.
Yeah, I didn't play the original Toy Story. I played Toy Story 2 quite a bit.
Alright. Toy Story 1 is fantastic. It's like a platformer for the most part. And then it just kind of like, hey, here's a new gameplay style. Like there's one bit which is a bit Metal Gear Solid-esque, where you're under like drinks cups, and people are walking by, and you've got to duck under the cups.
Oh, wait. Oh, I did play this game.
Yeah.
Because the second level is you have to help all the toys get into their hiding places and stuff.
Yeah, that's right. And you've got to help them, you know, hide. And then there's another one where you can try on a remote control car, and you've got to drive it and leap out of the window. And it's like,
I do remember this.
And then there's another level which, I mean, Matt, you'll be interested in this. There's another which is basically a Doom clone. So you're going round and you've got to hunt for like these little alien creatures. So you're wandering around like this Doom style level in first person. So you've got effectively, well, this could have even been like the first person shooter on the Mega Drive, really. I don't know if that Zero Tolerance or whatever it was called came out before. But yeah, you've got like a Doom clone in it as well.
I'll have to check this out.
Yeah, it's really good. I mean, the game does have level passwords. So even if you just boot up the emulation and load up that one level, it's really neat. And like the final level, you're on like this, I think it's either a rocket. Yeah, I think there's a rocket and you and Buzz are tied to it and you're dodging cars trying to catch up with this moving wagon. It's really well done. Like the game's got so much variety. The first level or so, or the first couple of levels, feel a little bit janky because it's not like really tight platforming. And things seem to be a little bit floaty. But once you get into it, the game does offer quite a lot. But yeah, I mean, like, you mentioned Toy Story 2, Steve. That's a completely different game.
Yeah.
That's a 3D collector form, I believe.
Yeah, and it was pretty good. Going back to it, the platforming definitely is a little more frustrating, especially in the levels that have a vertical element. But I mean, that's just down to its age. I mean, at the time, it was, you know, amazing.
Yeah, nice. So what other games were big on the SNES then? There were Disney titles. I mean, there was a few others, like, I know I played like Fantasia, for example. That was another movie license on there, which was god-awful. And I know there was Jungle Book, and I think there's like a Pinocchio game, maybe? Seems to ring a bell. There were a few other licenses which I don't think ever really got that popularity.
Mickey Mania.
Shite. No, I mean in terms of like movie licenses.
Oh, yeah, I don't know. You probably had a whole bunch of movie licenses that never went anywhere because there was, we already talked about Lion King during the news segment that had it. Aladdin made it.
And then after that, it was kind of lacking in terms of what hit the mainstream.
Yeah, no, it was going to be dedicated more to like the cartoons and stuff. Like like the TV shows.
I mean, you just brought it up then, but I think probably the other big Disney properties back then were probably the Mickey Mouse games. And it's kind of weird because unlike the movie licenses where you got them on both platforms, the Disney Mickey Mouse games were pretty unique for both of them. I mean, Mickey Mania both, but then you had like, I can't remember what they call it. Is it Magical Quest or something? You've got like transformations.
Yep, Mickey Mouse and Magical Quest.
And then Mickey's Magical Mirror on GameCube.
Okay, so yeah, Nintendo had like the magical stuff. And then the Sega side, we got the Illusion games. Up until, well, I suppose Power of Illusion was the first Nintendo exclusive one, which was on the 3DS. But all the other ones were like on the Master System and Mega Drive and Game Gear.
Mm.
So yeah, tell me about is it Magical Quest or Magical Mirror, Magical Quest? Tell me about it. You can transform, and I know nothing else about them.
I don't know about that one. I know Mickey's Magical Mirror on the GameCube was... It was very much a game for young children. Like, it was set up so that you could use Controller 2 to, like, point things out to them and then have them click on them from that. But it was a very basic game, clearly meant for very small children.
Magical Quest. Yeah, no, you had various, trying to remember, like, Mickey and Goofy and Pluto are off, like, playing in the park or having a picnic or some shit is the story, and they walk off and they disappear, and Mickey's like, oh, damn, where'd my friends go? And he goes off to find them, and of course, suddenly, like, I don't even remember, like, he climbs a cliff or something, or I don't even remember. It hasn't even been that long to play. It's some super contrived thing, doesn't really matter. And then suddenly you're going through different zones, like you go through a Jack and the Beanstalk zone, and you get different power-ups that transform you. Like one of them, when you're going through the Hellscape, you get a you get a fireman outfit, and you get to put out fires and move blocks and stuff.
Yeah, I've seen that. The fireman's outfit I've seen images of, and there's
a mountain climbing one where you get to grapple beam yourself around.
What other transformations were there?
There's the fireman, there's the mountain climber, which gives you a grappling hook.
Yeah.
There is was it like a wizard? Yeah, the magician outfit, and you basically have a zap finger. You can shoot stuff with magic, and then you have your standard outfit, which just kind of allows you to like grapple and grab stuff and climb and whatnot.
Yeah. Cool. So they're good games then?
The Magical Quest is amazing, honestly.
I know the Illusion games are pretty good. And yeah, I mean, Castle of Illusion is slightly overrated, if I can say that. Am I allowed to say that?
I'd agree with you there. I played it last week, and yeah, it isn't as good as I remember it being.
I mean, honestly, I think the Master System Illusion games are better than the Mega Drive ones. Like, it's still pretty good. Like, the music's really good, and they're really fun and really cutesy, and they are good games, but not quite the masterpieces as, you know, people make out. Well, Castle of Illusion isn't. You got World of Illusion as well, which I think is a lot more interesting than, you know, the likes of Castle. But for me, I think the 8-bit games are a lot better. Like, the 8-bit games are a little bit different because it's designed around picking up objects and throwing them. And, like, Land of Illusion in particular is, like, amazing. That's, like, one of my favourite games.
Oh, yeah, you had other good stuff, like, Mickey Mania was one of my favorites, even though that game got hella hard.
Yeah, the difficulty on that was intense. It's just like, here's the first level. Now the second level, we're gonna fuck ya. Like, the second level gets really brutal, especially like on the... So you've got that cart that you're going along.
Yeah.
And you've got to dodge everything. And then you've got all these skeletons that explode and the bones go everywhere. And...
It's a little ridiculous.
Yeah, but the thing is, it's weird because you get to the next level, and the next level's kind of easy. Like, is that the level with the mooses?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that one kind of simple. And the difficulty is all over the place. It's a really good game, as long as you don't mind the fact that they balked the difficulty.
Then you get other... well, that's the other thing, is like Disney games were all over the place just in how they played, too, because, like, on the Super Nintendo, you had Mickey Mania, and it's this ridiculous platformer, and then you have something like Goof Troop, and it's essentially a top-down puzzle game.
Yeah. But, I mean, a lot of them were platformers, and a lot of them were quite, you know, linear and quite formulaic in a way, for the most part. But then you had something like, say, you know, one of my favourites, Quackshot, where they sort of had a very linear approach to the platforming. And I think that kind of helped liven it up. I mean, a lot of people like Quackshot, and I think that's probably the reason. I mean, even though the level design may not necessarily be the best, I think it just felt a lot fresher than the others, just in how they did everything, with like all the item upgrades and power-ups and things.
Well, honestly, Quackshot is almost has a Metroidvania light feel.
It is. I mean, it is very Metroidvania light, because, you know, you get to a point where you can't progress, and it's like the game says, okay, we'll save here. Then when you come back to this level, we'll dump you right here. So once you've got the item, no problem. Need a red plunger to climb this wall? No problem. Go and fetch it. Fly back here. Job's a good one. And yeah, I mean, it's kind of like a second part to the level, but as you say, it does feel like kind of a Metroid game in terms of progression in that respect. Very light, of course, but it still had something which I kind of feel was quite a neat mechanic, because, you know, like the plungers were really neat upgrading them, and then you'd get like different weapons and stuff, and, you know, it was just like a nice little touch, I feel, just to spruce it up.
Well, so speaking of plungers, so it's like, oh yeah, you run around, you have a plunger gun. It's like, oh, I have a plunger gun, neat, that's cute. You know, Disney's not going to get too violent. No, Pete's gang members just have a fucking gun.
Yeah, it's just like, oh yeah, here's a cute little plunger gun, and we're going to fire like SMGs.
It's like, oh shit.
But yeah, it's really cool. I mean, that was actually our podcast game. Well, one of our podcast choices that we all played this month. I assume that you've played it before, Ryan?
No, this was the first time I ever played it.
Was it? I know it was the first time for you, Matt, for sure. And Steve, was it new for you as well?
Yes.
All right. Well, I'm very familiar with the game. I own it on the Saturn, and I used to play it a lot as a child. So, I'd be interested. You three talk about it and tell me what your thoughts were.
I find it wild that it was released on the Saturn and the Genesis.
Well, the Saturn one, it was a part of the Sega Ages collection. They did a Disney and Castle of Illusion. So they re-released a lot of like arcade games, Mega Drive games, Master System.
So it wasn't like its own special port.
No. I mean, like over in the West, they released like a trilogy of games in the Sega Ages thing. It was Outrun, Space Harrier, and Afterburner. But then, like in Japan, they released tons of them. So like loads of games got the Sega Ages treatment, which, if you imagine what's happening with the Switch, it's basically that, but with a Saturn. So it was literally just a fancy, you know, updated version. I mean, it was in Japanese, but honestly, you don't really need the English for these games, so it's not necessarily a problem.
Well, that explains a lot.
Yeah.
I can see parts of Quackshot being an issue, not having English in it, because it does tell you at certain points you need to do this to progress.
Yeah.
It doesn't, because it's like, oh, you need a key. But I think as long as you've played the game at least once and you get the whole progression system, even if you've forgotten where to go, it's still not that much of an issue, because the game saves right before. So you just play all the levels, and then if you can't progress any further, you go back to one of the other levels, and it's like, oh, this thing I picked up works here. So I don't think it's necessarily that much of an issue, to be honest. Because if you played, you know, for example, you do it in order and you do Duckburg first, then you go to the Aztec one next with the pyramid.
Yeah.
And you go to Dracula and you think, okay, I'm not finishing any of these. So then you go back to Duckburg and it's like, oh shit, here's a key. It's like, okay, go to the next level. I've opened this temple. Excellent. I don't think it would be as much of an issue for people that have, as I say, played the game at least once before and get the whole non-linear thing. But yeah. So how far did you all get anyway? Did you beat the game or?
I got to Transylvania, and then that ghost fucker just killed me over and over again. You know the ghost? Yeah, the big fat ghost that you follow, and then he turns into like half a dozen little ghosts, and they just fly in random directions, and yeah, couldn't avoid it.
That bit is really obscure. What you have to do is, you know the red blocks? that you can jump on. Your bubble gun, if you remember, destroys those blocks.
Yeah.
So you destroy the blocks, and there's like a little lift that goes up. So I don't think it's like the first group of blocks. I think it's the second. You'll see like a hole in the ceiling above you. You basically destroy those blocks, and it'll reveal a lift, and then it'll just take you up. Otherwise, it's an infinite loop, and it never ends.
All right. I mean, I just kept getting killed, and then I lost all my lives, and the continue put me at the start of the stage, and I was like, nah.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, that bit is really obnoxious. I completely forgot to warn you about that bit before you started playing. I did get past it as a child, but I remember that bit thinking, what the fuck am I supposed to do here? I think I literally just hit the blocks out of frustration with the bubble gun and was like, okay, fair enough. But yeah.
I mean, another bit that was quite obnoxious is the temple. The fact that when you get to the end of the temple, you can't get out with the plane. You've got to retrace your steps right to the start again.
Yeah, you have to run. At least a lot of the enemies are dead.
Yeah, like most of the enemies are dead or not there, so it's a little bit of a pain having to backtrack to the plane, but at least a lot of the enemies and stuff are disappeared, so it doesn't usually take too long. But I get what you're saying. Although I'm guessing that once you're in the middle of the temple and you meet Goofy, is it Goofy?
Yes.
Yeah. What the fuck is he even doing there?
I don't know, he's just hanging around, I suppose. But I suppose there wouldn't really be any, logical way of the plane getting in there. I mean, they could have at least had something that dropped you down to the bottom, maybe. So then you just walk across, rather than having to retrace your steps.
Yeah, I mean, one thing that didn't make sense for the plane anyway is the very first level, Duckburg. It says, oh, you need a plunger to get over this wall. It's like...
And then a plane flying down.
You have a plane. Just fly over the wall. But no, you've got to go through a temple to get the plunger.
That is a fair point. Well made. Did you guys get any further, or did you get stuck in Transylvania as well?
I got hung up in the same area.
I didn't even make it that far. I went to Duckburg, got to the point where I had to stop, and then went to the desert and just beefed it.
All right. Well, what happens is you start off and you have those 3 areas open to you, so you can go to any of them. And when you've beaten Transylvania, when you've beaten those 3, you then unlock, I think it's 4 or 5 more levels. And you have to find, I think it's a map or something, or I don't know, whatever it is. It's some excuse to have to search the area. And you go to Egypt, you go to Siberia, you go to a bunch of different places. And then finally there's a showdown where you go to the jungle. And then like some other place, like a secret temple or something, from what I remember. And yeah, it's a pretty neat concept because you got a lot of that going backwards and forwards and collecting different items and upgrades. Like you upgrade your plunger where it sticks to people as well. Well, it sticks to people and animals. So you know those birds that fly over your head in the Aztec one? And they drop like beehives and stuff.
Is that what there's on their face? I thought their beak was just all fucked up.
No, I think they drop bees or something.
Yeah.
There are those. Yeah. Well, you actually get a plunger where you can fire them upwards and you can hit the birds. And then you can grab the plunger and ride the birds. And it's sort of like a shmup section where you're going up and down using the bird. You can't fire, but you have to avoid stuff. And it's kind of neat.
Yeah, I watched a playthrough of the rest of the game. So I did actually see like how it all plays out.
Yeah, I mean, it does have some really neat stuff in, like some really neat bosses. For me, I really like the look of the game and the non-linearity. I say non-linearity, and it is still sort of linear. It's like you have to get this item to access this thing. So it's still kind of linear. But it's, I don't know. I say, like, I find the game quite easy once you know how to get past the obnoxious parts, like the ghost bit. And I find it's just like a very kind of relaxing experience for me. Unlike, Castle of Illusion, where it does actually get quite difficult in places.
Well, this still got quite difficult for me. I mean, I was getting quite frustrated with it. And to be honest, I thought I was going to really like this game, and I ended up just not liking it. just the gameplay of it just didn't really click with me. I mean, I'm not the biggest fan of platformers anyway, but
Yeah.
but it's not. It just didn't grab me, and I didn't like the music as well. People say that the music is really good in this game. I found it like not very good at all.
Really?
Yeah.
I find it catchy.
I found the music charming. I wouldn't say it was good.
Yeah, I think that's the main thing. I think it is quite catchy, and it might not necessarily be the best, but it goes well with the levels and it suits it, shall we say.
If I remember, I think the temple music was okay, but I didn't really like the rest.
Really, even on the stuff that you watched in the playthrough?
Yeah.
All right. I mean, that's fair. I'd say it's like different tastes and stuff. As, Ryan said, I don't think the music was necessarily the best, but, I still liked it and think it went well with the game. One game that I would recommend you stay away from, though, is they made another Donald Duck game on the Mega Drive called Maui Malad, where you're basically like a ninja. You're Donald Duck and you're a detective, but you can transform into a ninja, which sounds cool, but it's the worst fucking Mega Drive game I've played. It's so horrendously bad. It's obnoxious as hell.
I've never even heard of it.
I hadn't heard of it as well until I, got like an EverDrive ages ago. And I thought, I'll give that a shot. And after I played it, beat the fucking game, just saw beating it, and I was like, Christ, no wonder I've never heard of that pile of shite.
I do have one on the Game Gear, which I've not tried because my Game Gear needs repairing, but it's called Lucky Dime Caper, I believe.
Oh, that's amazing. I love that game. That's my favourite Donald Duck game.
Oh, right.
It's a really solid platform. And it goes for the kind of Quackshot format, as in...
Oh, no.
No, it doesn't have that non-linearity of, you have to get this item and go here. So it's not like that. I mean, it's sort of like Quackshot in the sense of you have 3 levels open up at the start, you beat those levels, and then you need to do like 4 more. So it's non-linear progression in the terms of you've got a bunch of levels available to you, which have a similar kind of difficulty, and then you group of levels with another similar kind of difficulty. I mean, the gameplay style is nothing like. It's a platformer through and through. You jump on people's heads. You do have like a hammer and stuff, or a frisbee to use as a weapon, but it's very much a standard platformer.
I'll have to give it a go when my Game Gear gets repaired.
Yeah, and it's very linear, so there's no kind of obtuse, destroy these and find the hidden elevator.
What is the game with the pogo stick? Is that DuckTales?
DuckTales, yes.
Yeah.
Which I actually wanted to ask, the way Quackshot is set up, is this really a DuckTales spin-off?
I don't think it's a DuckTales spin-off. I think it's DuckTales insofar as Donald Duck is from typically the DuckTales things. I think it's more it uses the characters from the DuckTales franchise. Because you've got, is it Gizmo? Like the little bird type thing?
Yep,
You've
the
got
goose, Gizmo the goose, or chicken. Is he a chicken?
Yeah, you've got him, you've got Huey, Dewey, and Louie, which are obviously from DuckTales as well.
Scrooge is there in the beginning.
Yeah, you've got like a lot of characters from DuckTales. So I think it's a DuckTales spin-off, as in from the DuckTales cartoon, not the DuckTales game. There was also another game, I mean, Lucky Dime Caper, as you probably gathered, is another DuckTales themed one. And there was another one called, I think it's Deep Duck Trouble, which is another one.
I've heard of that.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, and now that I think about it, you have a DuckTales was kind of an odd one because in the, what was that, early 90s?
Yeah.
Super early 90s or super late 80s that DuckTales hit.
Yeah.
And you had stuff like that where, like, a lot of your Disney characters shifted over to just that setting.
Yeah, because
in general, because then you also, I mean, you had Darkwing Duck, which was related to that era.
Yeah. Yeah, it's kind of weird because, like, obviously on the NES you got DuckTales, and then the Mega Drive didn't get anything like DuckTales, but it's like, here's all these spin-offs, which it's not DuckTales. It's not, based on the DuckTales game or a DuckTales 2 or whatever, but we're just going to use that setting.
Yeah.
And, yeah, I mean, aside from that, we had, obviously, the 3D platformer with Toy Story 2, and then you've got like a million 2D platformers. Did they necessarily go into like other genres, Disney? I'm trying to think of games that weren't, kind of platformers back then.
No, like I said, there was Goof Troop, which was a top-down scoot blocks around puzzler, but
Most of the time it was platformers.
most of the time it was platformers.
It was probably when they went on to the next era after like the Mega Drive and SNES that they started experimenting a bit more. Because obviously you had the 3D platformer with Toy Story 2, which was that on the PlayStation and the N64?
Yeah.
And then moving on, we also had any other games that weren't platformers. I mean, we have a game that we're going to move into in a moment.
I mean, we go far into the future of Disney Interactive, and we get to Infinity, which is completely different.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, back then, like in the PS1, PS2 days.
I'm trying to think.
I don't think they were as really. I don't know whether they had as many games back then in that era, in the PS1, PS2 era, or maybe they did. So shit that no one bothered. I mean, you had some attempts at 3D platformers like Quack Attack, which was garbage and like a Crash spin-off. I think probably the main one is like the Kingdom Hearts series.
Yeah, I mean, there's other ones like as you get further on, they made games about cars, which I'm sure those had some kind of racing element.
You'd have thought.
There were DDR games made with Disney stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, you've got a lot of stuff like the Pirates of the Caribbean games and
Tron.
Tron, stuff like that.
Unsurprisingly, and looking up a list here, there was basically a Tiger Electronic for every single Disney IP.
Yeah.
I've heard that the Nightmare Before Christmas PlayStation game's decent.
I wouldn't know. I'll tell you what was decent.
Is that Disney?
Yeah,
Disney?
yeah.
Yeah. It's always been Disney. Yeah. I'll tell you what was decent though, the Monsters Inc. game for the original PlayStation.
I've never played that. I've never seen the film.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's actually worth checking out. But the PlayStation game was actually surprisingly good, even though it deviated from the film, again, as they usually do, because they need to put more content into the video game. But, we didn't expect the game to be as good as it was.
So I know it's not quite retro yet, but I know that, can we count the game Alice as a Disney game, even though it wasn't made by Disney?
That is a very good question.
Like, is it?
I would say no, because it doesn't have like the Disney logo or anything on it, and it's more just a base off of the Alice in Wonderland book rather than the film. Because
that's true.
Disney, but based on the novel,
right?
And this was like based on the novel, so it had nothing to do with the Disney property. So I think the only Alice in Wonderland game was that one on the 360, which was based on the Tim Burton one. I think
there's a Super Famicom one, but it looks like a painting game.
Was that?
Yeah.
There you go.
There's an Alice in Wonderland on the Game Boy Color platformer,
and it was an ultra-violent FPS. Wait.
The Alice game that came out later, that was made by American McGee, who was actually one of the level designers for Doom, interestingly.
Yeah, everything links back to Doom.
Yep.
There we go.
But yeah, that was a pretty good game. And the sequel as well was pretty good. Anyway, it's not Disney, so we won't talk about it too much.
It's pretty much thoroughly dominated by platformers
until Kingdom Hearts, I suppose.
Until Kingdom Hearts rolled up.
Yep.
Which leads on to our next game, Kingdom Hearts 2. Right, well, I won't talk about this one too much. I think Stephen, as our resident RPG expert, do you want to introduce the game?
So Kingdom Hearts 2 is kind of a loophole because we didn't get it in Europe and North America until 2006, but Japan got it in 2005. So, fuck it, it counts. But the reason I had them play Kingdom Hearts 2 instead of the first one is I figured, at least 2 of the 3 wouldn't care about the story, and Kingdom Hearts 2's gameplay is better. So the whole thing with Kingdom Hearts was Square wanted to make a game about Mickey Mouse, and just happened to be working in the same building as Disney in Japan, and they just I think it was Tetsuya Nomura was the one who ended up in the elevator with the head of Disney in Japan, and he's like, "Hey, I want to make a game," and they started talking, and Square wanted it to be a game about Mickey Mouse. Disney wanted it to be a game about Donald, I believe. And they compromised and made it an original character with Donald and Goofy as companions. And I tell you what, it's a wacky concept. You wouldn't think that merging Final Fantasy and Disney would work, but it does. As evidenced by the decades-long series.
I mean, it works in the sense that it was popular, but I don't know whether it's just me, because Kingdom Hearts 2 was my first experience with the series. But seeing like these Final Fantasy characters alongside the Disney ones, it felt like weird. I mean, as a kind of a crossover thing, you often get, these crossover games with like two completely different properties, and they seem out of place, but it's fine, it's a crossover thing. So it wasn't necessarily a problem, but it still looked a bit out of place.
Like, I can get past that pretty quickly. It's just, my biggest problem with Kingdom Hearts is the story makes no goddamn sense.
It probably makes sense.
It does. It does.
It does.
It is, and you just... Well, here's the thing. And the story is not bad if you just go, okay, it's ridiculous.
If you're wanting to, like, pay attention to everything, like, there's some characters that I think, who the fuck's that? And I don't know whether it gets revealed later or whether from previous games or whatever, but there's a lot of, I have no idea what the hell's going on.
It depends on the character.
I think I don't really know if a lot of it is to do with the fact that I haven't played the original or like any of the spin-offs or whatever. So I don't know if I'm missing some of the story or whether it's convoluted.
Based on the characters I know show up in the early game, there are some of those characters you will not recognize because they're from Final Fantasy.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not very familiar with Final Fantasy, so that could be a reason.
By the way, the other thing is...
What do you describe as early game, by the way? Because I played the game for like 3 hours and got to the opening logo, which would indicate that's early game. But for a lot of games, 3 hours would be the game. So,
yeah, not for Squaresoft.
Right, okay. So is 3 hours early game?
Yeah.
Or 3 hours and a bit more than that still early game?
Yeah, I mean that entire opening section where you're not playing a Sora, that's the prologue. And yeah, it goes on for way too long. But that's,
that's Squaresoft.
When you said not playing a Sora, you could have just stopped at not playing, seeing as like out of those 3 hours, maybe 2 hours of fucking cutscenes or text boxes.
Yeah, so admittedly, that is a problem with it. Like, it goes on for way too long.
I mean, to be honest, that's something I find quite typical of a lot of RPGs, to be honest. So I can't necessarily criticize the game for that. But still, for me, it's an issue. And that's probably one of the reasons why I have issues with the story, is because sometimes the cutscene's gone for too long, and I'll check Facebook or something, or, like, make a cup of tea, because it feels like it's just going on fucking forever. And I'll try and pay attention, and I'll try and get the gist of what's going on, but I can't listen to every single thing and, take note of everything that's happening because it's going on for a long time and it's not particularly interesting for me. And that could be the reason why I'm not getting a lot of the story in that early game, or it could just be because you're not playing as Sora, you're not playing as the main character, as you say.
I mean, it's the opening is at least in part designed to hook you in by, like, you've now played for Sora for 2 games and you don't have Sora. It's like, well, when am I going to get to him? So I think they expected that to keep driving people through the opening, which, kind of. But
people are like, where's my handsome boo? Yeah.
But the biggest thing with Kingdom Hearts and its nonsense is, it's not...
That's nonsense.
It's not super difficult to understand, if you have the information available to you. It's just a lot to remember.
Yeah.
But, jumping into basically the middle, like you guys did, you weren't going to understand most of what was happening. because a lot of the establishing stuff was done in the first game.
I mean, in fairness, I kind of expected that anyway, because I do kind of get that feeling with RPGs in general. But yeah, I find RPGs quite impenetrable when it comes to story, because they tend to be overly convoluted. And it probably didn't help that this is like the second one in the series.
Third?
Oh, is there a spin-off game in between?
So, and this is one of the other things about Kingdom Hearts that tricks up a lot of people. There's no such thing as a spin-off game. Every game, whether it be a handheld or main console, is the main timeline of games. So a lot of people, they played Kingdom Hearts, and then Kingdom Hearts 2 comes out, and they played that, and they're going, okay, what the hell happened? Like, there's all this stuff that I apparently missed because it was in the Game Boy game Kingdom Hearts Chain of Memories. So every game in this series is important. Some more than others, but there's no such thing as a spin-off game for Kingdom Hearts. It's all important because Tetsuya Nomura is a mad person.
That's a kind thing to say, really.
I mean, stuff did start making sense for me after the prologue section. It does reveal, like, a lot of what's going on when you start playing as Sora and you meet up with Mickey and... what's the wizard's name?
Yen Sid.
Yin Sid, which is Disney backwards. It does kind of like go on and explain a lot of stuff.
Yeah, it gives you a little bit of the cliff notes from the first two games.
But I did go back and play like an hour of the first Kingdom Hearts game, which obviously isn't enough to give you like much of a look at the story. It is something that I'm going to go back to definitely, because I was playing this on the PlayStation 4. I picked up the final mix versions, 1.5 and 2.5, so I was playing on them. And in Kingdom Hearts 2, I got as far as Mulan stage, which was about 5 hours in for me.
So you got most of the, hey, here's what you're doing for this game.
Yeah.
Go nuts. And you did get to the drive forms.
Yes,
which is,
yes.
Yeah, which is one of my favorite mechanics in the game, and I'm sad it didn't come back for 3.
I mean, I've not quite fully gotten to grips with all of the combat stuff, but I am learning how to work it bit by bit.
Yeah, it's one of those that takes time to get used to, like a lot of RPG systems.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't think the combat was necessarily so bad. I mean, obviously there's games like the Final Fantasy games or whatever, where it's a lot slower paced, and I find those quite obnoxious most of the time. Mm-hmm. And this was definitely a lot better than that, but I can't go as far as to say I enjoyed it. I can just appreciate that it's not as bad as a lot of RPGs do. Maybe once I get used to the combat, or do you start getting more stuff as you go on?
Yes.
Presumably, that's like most.
Yeah, so when you get to the point that Matt is at, you get to the point where you can activate a mode where you can use 2 Keyblades.
Okay.
And then, you get stronger forms as you go along until the last one you get, you're literally floating on the ground and waving your Keyblades around with magic, and you just feel like a god.
All right, cool. So it does kind of change. I mean, I'd say the combat seemed okay, but it wasn't interesting enough for me to hook me in. And the combat would have to be really good, because I'd say like with the cutscenes and all the dialogue and stuff that happens, that was enough to put me off quite a lot.
Yeah.
And I think that with RPGs, they have to have that good balance, because if the gameplay is good enough, then the story stuff, if it's a bit overly long, I can still kind of get by it to an extent. And yeah, I just couldn't do that with Kingdom Hearts 2, so I didn't enjoy it. I'll tell you what, graphically, it looks brilliant. I think it's a very pretty game. I'll give it that.
Oh, yeah. Like, just the style and the graphics they put into it, like, it looks really good, especially on the Final Mix versions.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I say the artistic style and the look of it is pretty damn good.
And they did a pretty good job of finding a way to have the Disney and Final Fantasy aesthetics kind of meet somewhere in the middle. It's still a little jarring to be having, like, these super serious scenes where, you know, somebody dies and then you've just got
Goofy turns up.
Yeah, Goofy and Donald in the background.
Yeah, I mean, it's still... it's weird. As I said before, it does kind of seem weird that you've got these Disney characters and Final Fantasy characters, and they do look like... It does look odd in a game that's taking itself sort of seriously.
Yeah.
But at the same time, artistically, the look of the Final Fantasy characters and the Disney characters don't necessarily look too bad together aesthetically. As I say, I still find it quite jarring that these two worlds are mixing. But
Sora's giant Mickey Mouse feet don't hurt.
Yeah.
Exactly.
But speaking of the Final Fantasy characters, I just wanted to say, at least in this version of the game, Aerith's voice actor is terrible.
Yeah, so I don't know what the deal was with Aerith's voice actor. Like, it was so bad.
The other guys are alright. I mean, like, Leon and Sid, you know, they're fine. But Aerith was bloody awful.
Yeah, I don't know what happened. Like, I just cannot explain it.
The actual Disney characters, though, their voices are spot on.
Yeah, you want to know why they're spot on? Because 90% of them are the original voice actors.
All right. I thought they might be. They looked like either they were the originals or pretty good impressions.
Well, either the originals or the current official voice. So, like, I think Donald Duck's original voice actor is died, but there is now an official Donald voice actor.
To be fair, Duck just makes fucking quacking noises. So
right, but
I think they can get away with that a bit more.
Almost all the Disney characters are, you know, the original or official voice.
Oh, that's cool.
Which, I mean, when you've got names like Robbie Benson and, you know, Angela Lansbury and, you know, some of these massive names, you're like, holy crap. Yeah, Christopher Lee's in this game.
It's going to be quite funny, really, because I can imagine, like, these actors are doing the cartoons and saying quite sensible stuff that's aimed at children, and then being given these fucking ridiculous scripts and thinking, what the fuck is going on with this shit?
Oh, no, like, Christopher Lee is totally up for this kind of nonsense. Like, he was always up for this kind of crap. And the reason I wanted to talk about Kingdom Hearts is because once you can kind of break through the barrier of the, you know, big RPG with a lot of nonsense going on, like, a lot of the emotional beats land, and, you know, you come to care about these characters, and it's just a very impactful game if you can break through.
Yeah, I mean, like, the end of the prologue, I guess my summer vacation is over.
Yeah, like, Roxas's whole story is, you know, one of the most tragic ones in the series. So there is a lot of good to be had, even if Tetsuya Nomura is bloody insane. It's just, you just gotta get through the nonsense to get to the good bits. There are some stupid bits, like, you know, the Pirates world, where you've got, you know, quote unquote real humans alongside the Kingdom Hearts aesthetic characters, and it just looks so off.
Yeah, I've not quite got that far yet. One thing that did surprise me, actually, going into the Mulan stage, just before it, you actually have like a shooter section as well, which I wasn't expecting. It's kind of like a 3D Panzer Dragoon style shooter, which just kind of like came out of nowhere.
So I'm gonna be honest, I don't know why you didn't expect that, because I talked about it in a previous podcast.
Oh, right, sorry.
Yeah, I talked about Kingdom Hearts in the shmup episode, because the gummy ship, you know, your method of traveling between worlds is, you know, it is a shmup straight up. The ship in this one, the sections for this game are much better than the ones in the original game. The ones in the original game, you're still on a rail, but it's a lot more tedious and a lot less fun.
And does that go for the final mix version as well?
Yeah, the ship in the first one is just kind of tedious, whereas in the second one it actually can be kind of enjoyable.
Yeah, I was expecting it to be really difficult in that section, and you know, it was a bit of a breeze, I have to say, the shooter section.
It's not super difficult really in any of the games until like there's parts of 3 where you have like bosses you fight that are pretty tough, but most of those sections are pretty easy. It's just the ones in the first Kingdom Hearts, they feel very long and very slow, and you tend to skip as many of them as possible.
But overall, I really enjoyed my time with the game, I have to say. And I've picked up that collection, and I'm going to pick up the 2.8 collection and 3 as well, and go through the whole lot in order.
Yeah, it's definitely worth checking out. I would recommend tracking down a copy of 358 Days Over 2 for the DS, because the version in the collections is just the quote-unquote movie where they stitch together the cutscenes.
Oh, yeah, because the 3DS game used like the touchscreen and stuff.
Well, okay, so here's my beef with that. You know, the DS games used both screens, and yeah, so that's kind of hard to bring down to a single screen until they did it for Dream Drop Distance. So, because your second screen is basically just a map during normal gameplay.
Right.
So I feel like, honestly, I think it's more that when they were doing the 1.5 and 2.5 collections, they were more looking to get them done quickly, and that would have been basically a whole redesign to do that, whereas the 3DS game was close enough that they could port it with just minor tweaks. But I would definitely recommend getting a physical copy of 358 Days, because it is a good game to play. It can be a little tedious, but it's one of my favorite games in the series.
I'll keep an eye out for it.
Yeah. I can't really speak to Recoded as much because I've never gotten very far in it, because it does not stick with me. Like, I love this series, but I've not managed to get through that game because it just doesn't work for me.
Well, is it bad, or is it just the style's different, or what?
It's not bad. It's more that, once again, having a contrived reason to go through the worlds from the first game, and like the gameplay just doesn't feel as good as the others, because it's a different type of gameplay. Like 358 was attempting to take the console gameplay and put it on a handheld. This one kind of embraced the handheld nature a little more, and did some interesting things narratively, but the gameplay just didn't feel as good as the other games.
Are there many Kingdom Hearts spin-offs? Well, I know there's like a lot of side games and shit like that, but are there any spin-offs that are like completely different?
The only game I would say that is actually entirely different from all the others is the mobile game, which is Kingdom Hearts Union Cross. And that one is a whole can of worms in itself, because it started as a browser game in Japan called Kingdom Hearts Kai, and then they rebooted it and put it on phones as Unchained Kai, and then rebranded it again as Union Cross. And it's a very like content rich game. Like, there's hundreds of hours to be had in it, but a lot of it is the same, running around, swiping on your touchscreen. So it's not nearly as engaging as the others.
Yeah.
Right. Well, I would say that I've sunk some time into Chains of Memories in the past, and that was kind of a different one too.
Yeah, Chain of Memories had the card mechanic where your combat is all done by cards. So it feels very different, and a lot of people really don't like it because of that, because the cards can be a little tough to come to grips with. But honestly, I think once you get your head around the system, it's it's actually a pretty enjoyable game.
I actually enjoyed Chains of Memories more than I enjoyed Kingdom Hearts 1 or 2, from what I've played.
Really?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Can I ask you a question, please, Steve?
Yeah.
Maybe you can answer it. What's with the fucking names for Kingdom Hearts games?
All right, so there's actually a reason for some of the nonsense here.
Really? I'd love
Yes.
it.
All right, so when making the handheld games, Tetsuya Nomura wanted each of them to have something to do with computers. So Chain of Memories is abbreviated to COM. Birth by Sleep is BBS, which I don't remember exactly what that is.
That's some kind of porn abbreviation, isn't it?
No.
Looking for those BBS hotties.
And that
Bulletin board system, by the way.
Yeah. Coded is obviously, referring to code. Dream Drop Distance is the least computery because it's just 3D because it's on the 3DS.
Mm-hmm.
Now, 358 Days Over 2 that's the one that breaks with the computer thing. So it's that way because the game takes place over 358 days, and you're dealing with 2 central characters. I'll admit it's not a great title, and it's needlessly convoluted like everyone accuses it of. There is an explanation. It's just not a good one.
Yeah, I can see that there are explanations for these, but they're still stupid. I mean, for example, the COM, I'm sure there's a more sensical title that would have made a lot more sense rather than just 3 words that happen to have that abbreviation.
Well, okay, so Chain of Memories makes a little more sense in context. You just don't get that context until the very end of the game.
Yeah, I mean, that one seems to be a bit better, but
Birth by Sleep was absolutely one of those where they started with the abbreviation and then figured out.
That's what it seems like. It seems like they've thought, we want to have a title that links to this, and then they just stuck in whatever.
Yeah. That one admittedly was dumb. And although the game is brilliant, like the game is amazing, it's just the name was ridiculous.
Fair enough. Right, so I think we've exhaustively covered a variety of different Disney games here, so I think we'll take a little bit of a break and we'll jump into our specialist topics.
Where do we go?
Okay, so it's time for our specialist subjects, and as always I have a Doom mod for you. Now you would think that there would be a lot of Disney Doom mods, but it turns out there really aren't. I mean, I did a lot of searching and...
There's not a Mickey Mouse one or anything?
No, you see, when someone puts out a Mickey Mouse mod, Disney kind of like go after it.
Yep.
They are very litigious. Anything unofficial, they'll kind of like threaten it with a cease and desist. So it is kind of difficult to find something. This mod is called Disney Mod, but most of the characters in it are actually Looney Tunes. All it is just a reskin with textures and new sounds. And you play as Marvin the Martian, who's obviously Looney Tunes, and all of the monster sprites are replaced with Sylvester, which is also Looney Tunes. Donald Duck, you get Donald Duck in there.
Nice
and you get Homer Simpson as well. Donald Duck was the only Disney one that I saw. There are probably more in there later on in the game. It is called Disney Mod, and it doesn't really have anything to do with Disney. And it plays exactly the same as normal Doom, except the sounds are really annoying in it. So, bit of a short one this month, but yeah, and I expected there to be a lot, and this is the only one that I was actually able to find.
And how is it?
And it's just a reskin. It's exactly the same gameplay.
Just literally a reskin.
Yeah, with new sounds as well, and the sounds are just annoying as hell. It's not something I'd recommend, and I've got no idea why they called it Disney Mod.
When that's probably the worst name they could give it, because that'll attract Disney's attention.
They should have just called it Cartoon Mod or something. Or Looney Tunes Mod, because there's more Looney Tunes characters than Disney characters in it.
Well, that's one to avoid then.
Yeah.
Oh well. It's probably the most fun you've had with Donald Duck this month, though, isn't it?
I've enjoyed Kingdom Hearts 2. He's in that a lot.
Oh, yes, true. Right, well, for mine, I struggled a little bit with what I was going to do, because there's not really much link to Pokemon and Disney. So my link is, again, a little bit contrived. Now, Disney obviously made a lot of 2D platformers back in the era for the Mega Drive and the SNES. So I've chosen the popular Mega Drive platformer Pocket Monsters. Now, as you can imagine, because it's for the Mega Drive, it's an unlicensed game and is actually like a bootleg game, I suppose. It was made in the year 2000. Now, it's credited to DVS Electronic Company, and I don't know if they made it or not. I mean, there's also someone called Chuanpu, who could be the developer. I don't know. It's a bootleg one, so there's not any official developers or anything. Some guy's basically just knocked this together in his basement. And yeah, it's weird. You control Pikachu, and you can jump on enemies, and you have a special attack, which is like a screen nuke type thing, but you can only do it when you've got enough power. So once you've got enough energy charge, you can do this electric attack. The game itself is sort of a variety of stuff. They take the backgrounds from different games, like Tiny Toons Adventures. There's a level which is nicked from Quackshot, I think it's the second to last level in the game.
Ooh, good tie-in.
Mr. Nuts. Yeah, exactly. There's still some tie-in, so I have got that connection. So yeah, there's a bunch of different levels they've basically nicked. They've got a Pikachu sprite and some other stuff on there, and they've taken some Pokemon like Beedrills in there. And then there's other Pokemon like Monkey, which isn't a Pokemon, it's just some monkey character which doesn't look like it belongs in any kind of game. It looks like they just threw it in. There's some things which are clearly Pokemon, and then there are some things which are just stuff.
Why didn't they just put Mankey in it?
Right.
I don't know. Thing is, it's weird as well, because you do get some bosses. I didn't beat it this time because there's a lot of bugs that are game breaking, so you can get to a point where it fucks over and you have to start again because it's a bootleg and it's not very well made, which is annoying. But I believe the last boss is an Onyx in this one, I think, from what I remember. But what's funny is that you'll fight Pokemon, in the first 2 levels, there'll be a lot of different Pokemon. And then, for the final 3 levels, the levels look nothing to do with Pokemon, and the bosses, look nothing to do with Pokemon. It's just stuff. And then suddenly you fight an Onyx. Now, as crappy as it sounds, it is actually kind of fun. It's not necessarily terrible. As platformers go, I've played worse official platformers. So it's worth playing if you've got, the ability to emulate via EverDrive, or maybe if you've hacked your Mega Drive Mini, if that's possible. It'll be out by the time this goes out, maybe. Will it be out? When does the Mega Drive Mini come out? Is it October? Or is it September?
I'm not entirely sure, to be honest.
I think it's October, so maybe it's not out yet. But either way, if you can access it by emulation or whatever, I'd still recommend giving it a shot. It's nice to play just because it's got all these Pokemon references that are so blatant, and then it's got some things that are so far removed from Pokemon that it just seems bizarre. It's insane. It's not an official Pokemon game, but it's the closest thing I can get.
There are, in fact, 2 of them.
There are. There's Pocket Monsters 2, and the second one, from what I remember, is based on an electric attack rather than jumping on enemies. So the gameplay style is a lot different. And it's still kind of similar in that the start of the game is Pokemon based, and then they just kind of half-arse it for a few levels. But yeah, there are 2 of them.
Yeah, because I was just looking through my Mega Drive ROMs, and I've got both of them.
Yeah, I believe the second one's worse. I can't remember why. I think it's because it's more broken, or whether it's the mechanics. I don't remember. It's been a long time since I played the second. But yeah, they're okay. I mean, I wouldn't beat them. I'd play maybe a level, maybe 2, just to experience it. But it's a bootleg, so emulate the fuck out of it. It's not official. You don't need to feel bad about anything. They weren't embarrassed when they stole all these assets from other games and made a bootleg of it, so you shouldn't have any qualms about emulating the shit out of it.
And if you're looking for another Disney tie-in, in my alphabetical list, it's right beneath Pocahontas. So there's your other Disney tie-in.
There you go. Say, exactly, it's good enough for a Disney tie-in. Right, okay. Now, let's see if Steve's got anything that isn't Kingdom Hearts.
No.
Ah.
I could sit here and be like, oh, I'll give you 3 guesses and the first 2 don't count. Like, you want an RPG connected to Disney? It's Kingdom Hearts.
It has to be one of the Kingdom Hearts games.
Like, so, and, I just went on, about the series, as a whole at length. I'm just going to kind of take a pass on this one.
Fair enough.
That's fair enough.
You can cover one of the Kingdom Hearts games another day. I suppose you covered enough Kingdom Hearts 2 today.
I've ranted into your ears enough about Kingdom Hearts.
Fair enough. Right, Ryan.
Well, you know how Disney is probably one of the most successful and profitable companies of all time?
Yes.
Let's talk about one of the most unsuccessful and most unprofitable consoles of all time.
Nice connection.
This is kind of how Kingdom Hearts 2 is a bit of a loophole because it just barely made it. This is also a bit of a loophole because it just barely fits in the gap. It's the Gizmodo. You might actually know more about this than the previous consoles. The Gizmondo, my bad. It was a handheld. It was supposed to be the next big thing. They marketed the fuck out of it. I mean, this was released in the UK, and I remember a couple things hearing about this back in the day. I was like, oh, it's going to be a new handheld, and it's like a multimedia device, too, kind of an almost like an N-Gage type thing, and it's going to play music, and it ran on Windows, which was a little crazy. And it released in March 2005 and was discontinued 11 months later. And it was partly because it was expensive as hell, and they dumped so much money into it that they went bankrupt. Like, the marketing was so intense, the development, they just went bankrupt and had to completely close down and stop production and everything. They just died.
I believe it.
But it had a couple really controversial and interesting things, like smart ads. They released a version with smart ads, or it was supposed to. It turns out that they never worked because it was just dying. Where essentially you would get advertising while you were just like goofing around on it, and it was to help balance the cost so they could lower the cost of it and get money back by selling advertising to the player, just straight through the device.
I mean, it seems controversial, but, a lot of games are doing it these days.
Yeah, but in 2005, I mean, obviously Zool had Chupa Chups, but...
Yeah.
It was crazy because it had a GPS in it, and it would actually be like, oh, we're going to advertise you, I don't know, we'll just pick something random, a Snickers, and here's a store where you can buy a Snickers, and it would tell you where you could go get one. It was able to do that, but it turns out, the console was $400 for a non-smart ads, and $200 or a little bit less for a smart ads enabled. And people bought the smart ads enabled because they're like, oh, we'll give it a shot, and then they never got any ads.
Yeah. Gutted.
So, oof.
It's interesting how the that whole thing with the adverts was really controversial back then, and now people would grumble a little bit, but they would probably accept, because that's the way the world is going.
Yeah, a lot of mobile games do have adverts right in the middle of them.
Oh yeah, I mean,
and that's what's crazy is that this was sort of like the mobile game before
mobile games.
Before they were, yeah. It also got in the UK. It got one game. It launched with one game.
What was that game?
Trailblazer.
That is a game I have heard of.
Supposedly, it got 30 titles. Oh no! Wait a minute. Now I'm reading this different. It had 6 other titles released in Europe. It was supposed to get 30. It got nothing because it failed.
Successful.
It is considered one of the biggest, most unsuccessful consoles of all time.
I've heard of the name Trailblazer. Is that a bike game?
Not a bike. It is a. You basically roll a ball around, and it has. I've played another game that. Oh, actually, this game specifically was released on the Spectrum and the Commodore 64. But I've played a different game by a different name that's the same thing.
I was going to say I have heard of it, but don't know anything about it.
Also didn't help that the console was just ugly, and your ABXY was stop, play, back and forward, because, multimedia.
Right.
Yeah, it's a goofy one.
Oh God, I've just looked at a picture of it. Jesus Christ, that is ugly.
And like £200, 14 years ago.
Yeah.
That's a lot of money
for a handheld. It's a handheld.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ, that is ugly.
Yeah, it's like a Robo Bean.
That is horrible.
Yeah.
That D-pad looks god awful as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That is not looking great.
I'm glad you all looked it up because it's terrible.
It's something to see.
Listeners, you need to look this up.
Well, it's quite an interesting connection because we've got quite a horrific looking console, which ties us nicely into next month's episode, which is going to be a horror-based episode. Smooth transitions. You couldn't see the connection. So yeah, well, thanks all of that, right? It's quite an interesting sounding console. I look forward to never ever playing it or any of its games.
I wonder how much they run for now. They're probably too expensive.
I can't even find one on eBay.
I won't bother looking. There's probably like 2 in existence.
There's like I think they sold 20 or 30,000 of them, which is actually impressive, but also not.
Oh, yeah. I can find the games. The games are selling for like 100 each.
Good God.
Well, they're listed for 100 each. I should say. I doubt anyone's buying it.
A very different thing.
Well, I was going to say, double check that they might be paying you $100 to take it off their hands.
There's a game called Sticky Balls for £100 if you want that.
I don't have to spend $100 to play a game called Sticky Balls. It was a bad time.
Yeah, it sounds like it. Right. Well, with all that out of the way, it's time to end this quite long episode, I think. I think we've talked about Disney and the news, to be honest, for quite a lengthy period of time. So next month, we have our Halloween special. As I mentioned before, we're going to be going back to a special format. We're going to be covering quite a few games for a Halloween episode. So hopefully you'll join us there. Right. All left to say goodbye. Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye.
See you next time.
Toy? Excuse me, I think the word you're searching for is Space Ranger.